My name is Msas. I'm the very proud Lynn Pippinger Dean of the University of South Florida Muma College of Business. And I'm so happy, so excited, so pleased to welcome you here today to this incredible USF St. Petersburg campus. Do you see, isn't this amazing? This is our 5th annual event. But guess what? It has been exactly 26 months since we had one face-to-face. I've seen people I have not seen for a long time. I am speaking and nobody says, Msas, you're on mute. It's just incredible. It's so nice. It really is so nice to see everyone. And I'm sure you know this is a joint endeavor between USF Muma College of Business and our amazing friends at the Tampa Bay Partnership. Our goal today, and always has been, to share some really important data and insights about our community, the Tampa Bay community. These data, these insights are relevant and impactful. Findings that we can all use to advocate for changes and to make improvement in our own worlds. That's the idea. We're giving the facts so that we start the right discussions and we all be better. We are so glad to see each one of you here today in person. And I'm seeing here, they put this sticker, says, please go ahead and eat. Yes, see, I'm sure Laurie will be very proud of me for remembering that, yes. As we get started, I'd like to thank Dr. Martin Tedlock, the Regional Chancellor for the USF St. Pete campus, for hosting us. I know Dr. Tedlock had to step out because he had an important meeting, but let's give Dr. Tedlock and all our colleagues here a big round of applause. We're really happy and excited to have this event right here in St. Pete because we are one region, one community, the Tampa Bay community. And I would like now to welcome all our elected officials. So please, if you're an elected officials, please stand up so that we can acknowledge you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I also want to thank our presenting sponsor, Grow Financial. Sure you know, Grow Financial is a multifaceted financial institution serving more than 200,000 members. Grow has been named a top workplace by the Tampa Bay Times for over a decade and has been recognized for its visionary approach to banking and community engagement. Please join me in thanking Grow Financial and its CEO, Thomas Fint. I don't know if Thomas is here. Thomas, thank you. Also we want to thank our amazing friends from Florida Blue for their continuing support of USF research inquiry related to the state of the region. At USF, we know that good researchers make good teachers, and Florida Blue helps support opportunity for students to work alongside faculty researchers for this kind of work. Please join me in thanking David Pizzo. David, thank you. Thank you for your support, and thank you to the team. It's an understatement to say that the last 2 years have been unprecedented. The word that has been used so much. We've never seen anything like this. But there is truly no other way to describe the remarkable shifts we've seen in how we live and how we work. We saw a simultaneous economic and health crises hit at the same time. Recovery continues, and the data this year highlights how the Tampa Bay region was impacted. This year, we're taking a very deep look at 3 critical areas for our community that do impact significantly our competitiveness: healthcare, innovation and entrepreneurship, and education. This will be the focus of today's event, but we have much more data in the reports that you have with you and also online. The Muma College of Business strives to be a resource for our business community, and we frequently work together with businesses across Tampa Bay to solve business challenges. With whom you partner tells a lot about you, and we cannot find a better partner for this incredible endeavor other than the Tampa Bay Partnership. So it is my tremendous pleasure. I'm so excited to introduce to you my friend, my partner in crime, Bimitra Simis, the President and CEO for Tampa Bay Partnership.
I gotta get some new outfits. I almost have on the same shirt. It's in the picture. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I joined this organization last fall, and it has truly been a joy to work alongside leaders who champion our region to fuel positive change. For those of you who may not know about the partnership, we're a coalition of regional business and not-for-profit leaders joined together by our shared commitment to improving the personal and economic well-being of the Tampa Bay residents. We are a privately funded, C-suite driven advocacy organization, the place where Tampa Bay's top leaders come together to roll up our sleeves and address our region's toughest challenges facing our community today. Through our foundation, we conduct objective, data-driven research to identify challenges and measure our progress. The cornerstone of that effort is our Regional Competitiveness Report. When the partnership joined Community Foundation Tampa Bay and United Way Suncoast in 2017 to produce the inaugural report, we knew that this could be a game changer for our region, and boy were we right. As we've researched the best practices of high-performing communities across the country, we found that similar benchmarking exercises were not only a common practice, but also an effective practice. At the same time, Msas and his team were developing their E-Insights report, which is an effort that is both parallel and complementary to our research. These tools together help us understand our region. They provide a shared focus for the work we do within the community and ultimately help us move the needle forward on our biggest challenges. You should have received copies of both reports when you arrived. If you're not, they're in your seats. And I also encourage you to visit www.stateoftheregion, where you will find more tools and data surrounding our region. In just a moment, we'll share with you the highlights from this year's data. But first, I'd like to acknowledge a few people in the room today. First and foremost, to all of you CEOs who participate and invest in the partnership, many of you took the time out of your schedules to be here today, and I thank you for that. We could not do this meaningful work without your commitment and investment, so thank you to our investors. Next, to Marlene Spalton and Community Foundation Tampa Bay, and Jessica Muroff with the United Way Suncoast team. The work you do within our community, yeah, United Way Suncoasties. The work you do within our community is especially outstanding, especially over these past couple of years, which have been very difficult. Our work with you on the Regional Competitiveness Report would not be the same without your important contributions. Thank you for your continued involvement and collaboration. To the public, private, and nonprofit leaders who participate in the development of this year's report, we had over 100 people participate in helping us put this report together. Your work each and every day helping to make this region a better place, and we hope that the insights and the data provided will make your jobs a little bit easier. I would also like to recognize all of the sponsors for today. Thank you again to Grow Financial, our presenting sponsor. I'd also like to thank PNC Bank for sponsoring our 2022 State of the Region video, which you're going to see shortly. And I'd like to also thank our supporting sponsors, the Helios Foundation and USAA. And also, events like today are not possible without all the work that goes on behind the scenes. So if you would give me a moment just to thank all the staff from the partnership and USF to help put this day together. So thank you very much. The data you're about to see hits some high notes regarding our region and our growth and the attractiveness of our community to both the residents and the businesses, but the data also shows that we have some room for improvement. because we want to create a community where everyone prospers and no one is left behind. We'll explore that idea as our researchers dig deeper into the indicators that drive our economy, with a particular focus this year on healthcare, innovation and entrepreneurship, and education. But for now, let's get started by watching a brief video highlighting some of our key findings.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this quick summary. As always, there are some good news, not very good news, sobering news. But as we just heard in the video, when we know our challenges, we can address our challenges. And the best thing we do is know the facts and know where we are hurting, so all together can work and address these challenges. So we're going to dive right in and take a deeper look at the state of the healthcare in our region. We all have seen just how critical these metrics are for the health and well-being of a community over the past several years, especially with the pandemic. So let's talk about the data. Are you ready? Say yes. All right. And for that, I would like to introduce you our dream team of researchers, which include Dr. Balaji Panamaban, Dr. Shivendu from USF Muma College of Business, doctoral students Rohit Sayed and Dave Sobush, Director of Policy and Research for the Tampa Bay Partnership. You will meet all of them over the course of this program. Shivendu and Dave will join us to talk about healthcare. Shivendu and Dave. All right, so the first question. You see people are not eating, they're waiting for your answer to this question. How does healthcare accessibility in the Tampa Bay region compare to other MSAs?
I'll jump in and answer that question, and with some apologies to Stephen Covey, I'll begin with the end in mind. Specifically with respect to healthcare insurance coverage rates, because a supply of providers without an even basic level of affordability doesn't equate to access. At 87.51%, Tampa Bay ranks 14th out of our 20 comparison markets. That's 1 in 8 residents without health insurance coverage. In a region of 5 million people, that's equivalent to nearly 625,000 residents without health insurance. If Tampa Bay were to reach a United States average of 90.83%, an additional 166,000 residents would gain health coverage. And if we reached the level of coverage in Minneapolis-St. Paul, 95.48%, we'd have nearly 400,000 more residents with health care insurance than we do currently. So with that in mind as table setting, we can talk a bit more about availability and affordability. Mental health awareness has increased in the last few years, and last year's State of the Region event was the first to include mental health care providers per 10,000 residents as an indicator. This year, Tampa Bay remains in 17th place out of the 20 markets, with 14.9 counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, and other mental health providers per 10,000 residents. That's a little more than half the US average and less than 1/3 of the top performing Metro Portland. Clearly, we are in a bit of a deficit, and that will only grow as our population grows without adding more providers to the market. Shivendu?
Thank you very much, Dave. I would like to highlight two important aspects which Dave touched upon, and that is related to access and affordability. Now, before we go into the details of these, let's look at the data sources that we have used for today's presentation, as well as for the E-Insights report that I would highly encourage you to go through, because it has tons of analysis, and we are going to only touch upon two important aspects out of that. Our data is coming mainly from CDC, is coming from Department of Health and Human Services, Google Trends data, which is the real-time data, 211 counts data. It's a database that tells us about how many people are seeking help relating to various things, but the data that we look at is focused on people who are seeking help related to stress or mental health. And we also use county health rankings data from University of Wisconsin. Now let's look at the data about the access of healthcare. Now, the data that we are using here, the number that we are using is population to primary healthcare provider ratio. That tells us that one provider, how many people one provider is serving. The lower is the number, higher is the rank, and better is the situation. Better access means lower population to primary care provider ratio. If we look at Houston and Tampa Bay, we can clearly see that Tampa Bay is doing better than Houston in year 2013. And let's see how our position, how these numbers have changed over the years. And you can see that both Houston and Tampa Bay are improving. That means access is getting better. But between 2018 and 2019, the number has become a little worse. That means situation is probably needs some more attention. The reason that maybe for this increase is related to the net migration rate. As Dave pointed out, that we are very high on net migration rate. That means our population is growing at a fast rate, but probably we are not able to attract healthcare providers at the same rate. Now let's look at the population to primary healthcare provider competitive position in 2019. Unfortunately, we are in the middle of the pack. We are on the lower half. We are not doing very well compared to other MSAs, though in our own numbers we are doing better. And also with regards to other MSAs in Florida, like Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, our position is lower than them. That means there's a lot of work to be done here. Now let's move on to another aspect which is related to affordability, healthcare affordability. This data is coming out of a survey which is done every year by University of Wisconsin's Institute of Population Health, where they ask people about what percentage of people are not able to access healthcare services because of affordability issues. And you can see that Tampa Bay, which is in green, is somewhere in the middle of the pack. Charlotte is right at the bottom in brown, and Minneapolis is right at the top with pink. Let's see how these numbers have changed. Our competitive position has changed over the years. We in some years did better, then started doing worse, and today, if we look at the latest year for which the data is available, 2019, we are somewhere in the middle. So we didn't change much on affordability over the years. But on the other hand, if you look at Charlotte, which was in 2013 at the bottom, has really improved its position. We need to probably get into learning more about what Charlotte is doing to increase the affordability, healthcare affordability. And again, that also relates to our relatively poor performance in terms of GRP per capita, which Dave pointed out, that we continue to be ranked 20th on that important economic prosperity indicators. And that may be the reason that even if we are not doing very badly in terms of access, people are not able to afford healthcare which is available because of the economic issues, because of economic prosperity not being at the level that it should be. Now, let's look at one other kind of key takeaway from whatever we talked about. One key takeaway, as I pointed out, just to sum up, is that our ratio of population to primary health care is declining, which is a good news. And in terms of healthcare affordability, our position has not changed much over the years, and that calls for attention.
Thank you, Shivendu. And you probably heard the big noise in the back of the room, that's our catering team not happy about the data. They are not happy that only 1 out of 8 in Tampa Bay have access to health care. And they're not happy about our performance in mental health. As you know, mental health, so every time you hear that noise means the data is not good and we need to do something about it. So let's go back to the mental health. We know that it is more and more important now for everyone. Pandemic did not help. So can you really discuss with us how did the pandemic affected mental health in the Tampa Bay region?
Thank you very much, Msas. And on mental health issue, obviously, given that pandemic led to economic distress to large number of people, led to social isolation, it has become an important question to look at. But before we jump into pandemic years, let's look at what was happening before the pandemic set in. How Tampa Bay was performing in terms of depression prevalence rate. This is again the data coming out of a survey where people are asked various kinds of questions, and this data is compiled at the county level every year based on that particular survey. In 2011, you can see that Tampa Bay was right at the bottom. In terms of depression prevalence rate, that means compared to other MSAs, we were not doing very well. Look at Denver. Denver is somewhere in the middle of the pack. Now let's see how our depression prevalence rate changed over the years. And you can see that we started doing well, but we kind of didn't maintain that position. We kind of slipped back. And now in 2019, up to which the data is available, we have improved our position. So that's a good news that before the pandemic set in, I think the healthcare services or the general well-being of people, having less stressful life, there are various factors that can go into that, were improving. But what is more interesting also to look at is that the Denver over the years has really improved its position. And we need to kind of go into the depth to find out what Denver is doing differently than what we are doing, because now they are at the top of the pack. Now let's look at how did pandemic impact all this. Now, since the data is not available from this particular survey, we use another data source, that is the 211 call data. This 211 call data is compiled at the county level where people who are seeking any type of help relating to mental health or stress or those things. So there are various kinds of categorization that is done of the 211 data, and we are only looking at the data which is related to mental health. And we see that if we look at the number for 2021, our position, unfortunately, is not very good. We are third from the bottom. And equally worrying is that not only we are third from the bottom, 2 other MSAs which are worse than us are also from Florida, which is the Miami and Orlando MSA. So this definitely is a major concern. I think a lot of data for the pandemic period is coming, and a lot of actions are being taken by policymakers, both healthcare providers, and I believe as the economic situation improves, probably some of this data will improve when we come back next year to present this data.
Thank you, Shivendu, and we really need to stop saying thanks God for Orlando and thanks God for Miami, and we need to improve. We really need to improve. It just, and this is why we're having this event today, so that we see where we are, what are our challenges, but also we see who's doing better than us, and then we can go and study them and learn from them. So let me go back to Dave now. Dave, there's a lot of overlap between the regional competitiveness report and also the CDC Determinant for health. So can you explain to us what is going on here?
Yeah, so it wasn't intentional that our framework ended up looking like the CDC social determinants for health, but it also wasn't accidental. The determinants of health is a framework for understanding how societal and environmental factors affect community and individual health. Our framework in the Regional Competitiveness Report, which was independently co-created with hundreds of regional stakeholders, many of whom out here enjoying lunch today, is similar, but the outcomes we examine are economic competitiveness and prosperity. It's unlikely that an economically competitive and prosperous community would yield a residential base with relatively poor health. And likewise, it is unlikely that an unhealthy community is one where the economy is growing, it's working for everybody, and that it's a place that people want to be. So with that, we'll take a look at a few selected social determinants of health. For Tampa Bay, wages, 19th out of 20. Our high school graduation rate, just above 89%, and our best performance as a region to date, ranks 11th out of 20. Digital access, which is the percentage of households with a computer and dedicated broadband access, 15th out of 20. And disconnected youth, which is the share of the population age 16 to 24 that's not employed and not enrolled in school, at 12.13%, which is roughly 1 in 8, Tampa Bay ranks 18th out of 20. As uninspiring as these rankings are, the racial disparities are even more unsettling. And when we look at the differences between black resident and white resident experiences, we find significant gaps. Wage gap, minus 21.4%. High school graduation rates, minus 6.9%. Digital access gap, minus 16.2%. And disconnected youth. Black youth aged 16 to 24 are 51.75% more likely to be disconnected from educational and economic opportunities than their white counterparts. So based on these indicators, we've got some ground to make up among our competitor regions and also some disparities to address internally.
Thank you, Dave, and thanks again, Dave and Shivendu, for these amazing insights. Let's give them a big round of applause. Every year we do this, we try few innovation. So the Madonna mic is only one innovation that you see. My team thought that I look better with the Madonna mic. But we have other innovations. I hope you saw that there are different sources of data that we are using, different techniques. And the third innovation that we wanted to introduce today is really to invite some experts to help us understand our challenges, but more importantly, share with us some good practices that will hopefully help us improve. And as we looked at the data, you've seen, I mean, we're hurting in healthcare, and we wanted to hear an expert, and there is no better person to talk about healthcare in the Tampa Bay region than the leader of one of the region's largest and busiest hospitals. Dr. John Kurz is the CEO of TGH, a nationally recognized non-for-profit academic and research healthcare partnered with our very own USF. Let me tell you, he is a true visionary leader who is known for building and leading healthcare companies by driving innovation, focusing on operations excellence, and forging strategic collaboration. There are so many accomplishments that John has accumulated over the years. But of course, his biggest accomplishment happened recently when he finished his DBA at the Muma College of Business. And please help me welcome my friend, a great member of our community, Dr. John Kurz. John. Yeah, when John, he said, you know, I'm very busy, Moaz. I will see if I can make this. I reminded him, John, I still can change your grades. That's But John, thank you so much for being here. We're really thrilled to have you here. what you've done for our community, just unbelievable in a very short time. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. John, you've seen the data. It's not what we want to see. So can you share with us some thoughts on how we can improve healthcare in the Tampa Bay region?
First of all, it's great to be here, and I'm now I'm an alumni of USF, so you can't change my grades anymore.
That is true. See?
But it was a great experience, by the way, if anybody's interested in the program. It was 3.5 years of just meeting wonderful people and great professors. It's a world-class university, I mean, simply put. So here's what I think. First of all, what we saw up here is obviously real. I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think it's terrible. I think what it does is it presents us an opportunity to think and behave differently around healthcare. I think what you're seeing a little bit, not completely, but is we're victims of our own success. Tampa's one of the hottest markets in the entire country. Tampa General is an academic medical center that's research-oriented in partnership with the University of South Florida. And I was over in Palm Beach for the last few days, because we've got about 150 team members there. And the TGH USF flag, Madam President, flies strong and brightly on the east coast of Florida when it comes to medicine, because we've got 7 clinics caring for the sickest and most compromised folks. And when I was over there in a similar setup here, we were talking a little bit about some of the dilemmas that Tampa's experiencing, because all across the state, for those of you who travel, you can attest to this, everybody's talking about Tampa and St. Pete. Everybody's talking about Tampa and St. Pete. I was with the former CEO and chairman of the board of American Express, who last night came to me and said, you know, John, we got this great business in St. Pete. It is exploding. I go over there. I never realized how great the city was, how wonderful the region is. So I think it's anecdotal, but we're victims of our own success a little bit, so we need to keep it in perspective. I think the big thing for us is all about access, all about convenience, all about cost, and clearly about quality. Healthcare is a very interesting business, and this is I'm speaking about this nationally right now. Healthcare is one of the few industries, this is very well documented, we're one of the few industries that the larger you get, the more expensive you get. That is a matter of fact, everybody. Now, we don't have time to get into the reasons why, but the larger you get, the more expensive you get. At TGH, we've recognized that. We've also recognized that if we're going to continue to be an attractive area for businesses to move into, for businesses to be started, and for families to come and make Tampa and St. Pete and this entire region, Clearwater, et cetera, their home, we've got to do a better job at providing better access to care, less costly care, more convenient care, and we need to pass that value on to the consumer of healthcare, and that's every one of you and every one of the businesses you own or you operate or you're part of. We have to do that. We have to. And that is the journey that TGH and USF Health are on. That is the journey that we're on. A good example, just a quick example to crystallize what I mean, and Florida Blue's here, I don't know where Dave's here,
David is here.
But we just launched a year ago an insurance product with Florida Blue called Truly. And the product can either sit alone in your business or can be part of a variety of products that Florida Blue offers. It's for small and mid-sized businesses, and the idea behind it is it's high quality, low cost, and we actually pass that on to the consumer. That's a product that is operating right now in this market and that we're selling and that we've had some success with, but it's only been a year old and it takes a little time, and COVID has slowed a few things down. But we're very proud of that product and that offering to small and mid-sized businesses that need help. So when I talk about access and I talk about convenience and quality and then passing on and cost and passing on that value, there's an example of how we're doing it right now in this community. And again, it's a collaboration between TGH, USF, and Florida Blue in this case. So I think that's the big focus. The other thing I think about is mental health. Mental health is a huge problem across the country. One of the ways we're dealing with mental health is we just announced that we're opening up a 120-bed mental health inpatient facility, again in collaboration with the Mersani College of Medicine, the Department of Psychiatry. We'll break ground in probably 6 to 8 months. We just got it approved, fully approved by our board, and one of my trustees is here. Thank you, Les Muma, for your support, because it's guys like Les who make the reality that I'm talking about a reality, because they support it. But we're building an academically oriented psychiatric facility, a behavioral health inpatient facility in the city of Tampa with USF, so we can provide more access. So we can, both inpatient and outpatient, geriatric, adolescent, pediatric, adult psychiatry. So we understand the need. We have to, again, going back to my original comment, we're victims of our own success. As my CFO likes to tell me occasionally, it's a good problem to have, John, but it's still a problem to solve. And it's a great problem to have that we're growing as a region, but it's still a problem to solve. These are some of the solutions we believe that will really help.
Thank you,
The last
John.
thing I would say, and this is really important because, again, the data supports it, is this idea of health equity.
Yeah.
At Tampa General, we believe that it is a God-given right to access world-class health care, regardless of your socioeconomic situation, regardless of your ability to pay. You, every single man, woman, and child, every man, woman, and child deserves access to world-class health care. That is extremely important. Health Park, which is another collaboration with USF, and you can see the theme here, with USF, we see 100,000 visits a year in Health Park, which is up on 30th Street in an underserved area. It's a medical home for patients. We care for them, and it's generational care. We're caring for grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, grandchildren, children, et cetera, and we're taking care of them longitudinally, which means we're keeping them out of the ERs, we're keeping them out of places that's most expensive to get care, but we're doing it in a way that transcends the person's ability to pay. You can't afford it, we take care of it. It's a huge commitment we have to this community, but we all have to do a better job with health equity. We've done a lot, but we have a lot more work to do.
100% agree, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Very quickly, one of the things that I really admire about your background and experiences is you've been and worked and practiced in different areas of the country.
Yeah.
If you have to select one that all of us need to go and study and investigate and benchmark, which one or two that really come to your mind that somehow crack the code?
Well, I'm a little biased because I'm a native of Boston, Massachusetts, and my, I know, Red Sox, Yankees, I get it. We're in a little bit of a Yankee territory here with your spring training. But I'm from Boston. I'm from Boston originally. The first 10 years of my career was at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, where I really trained as an administrator. And so I'm biased. I'm biased. I think Boston is a good example of how health systems collaborate, for example. So in Tampa, and you know, Moez knows me well. I'm a very, very transparent person. The dean of the medical school sometimes says, you're too transparent sometimes. I'm not sure that's possible. So I'll lay it out for you the way I think about Tampa versus Boston and where we can learn. Boston does a great job at sharing and innovating with competitors in healthcare. Great job. So there was an unwritten rule, for example, between administrators that when it came to education, when it came to research, when it came to innovation, those things transcend competition. Okay? So when we got into rooms talking about how to elevate a community, when it came to healthcare, we were awesome collaborators, and they still are outstanding collaborators. Far from perfect, but really good collaborators. In Florida and in regions like Tampa, we're still learning how to collaborate. This is a hyper-competitive environment in healthcare. We struggle sometimes at really partnering. And by the way, I'm part of that problem. I'm not suggesting that I'm not, because we're in a hyper-competitive environment. We have to learn how to be better collaborators. Now, I will tell you that COVID was a great example of how we can collaborate. I have never been prouder of the CEOs of the Baycare Health System, Advent Health, and HCA. We have great health systems. They not only are great health systems led by wonderful people, but they provide excellent health care. We're blessed in Tampa to have wonderful health systems across the entire region. No one quite like Tampa General, but they're really, really good. But we, that was a joke for the real serious person in the room. Like, oh my God, no, that was a joke, little dry sense of humor. We showed that we could collaborate through COVID. To this day, every Monday morning, the four system CEOs, every Monday afternoon, we get together and we talk every week about COVID, to this day. Talk about how we innovate, how we collaborate together. So we can do it. We know how to do it, but I think we struggle, and not just in Tampa, but across the state, because it's hyper competitive. So what do I think we can learn from a region like Boston or New York or San Francisco or Chicago? I think we can learn how to be better collaborators in certain things. Clearly, we're doing a great job with COVID, but I think we can do better, and I think we can learn from those areas.
John, thank you so much for your
Welcome, you're
insights.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Yeah, you've heard it from John, so let's not wait until another crisis hit for us to collaborate and to be much more effective and efficient. Bimitra, back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Moaz, and thank you so much, Dr. Koras. Although we are not in Yankees territory, this is a Rays territory. Let's start by setting the stage here a little bit. We're now going to shift gears and talk a little bit about innovation and entrepreneurship. So I'll just jump right into it. I'm back here with Dave Sobas and Balaji Padmanabhan from our research team. So guys, what are we seeing in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship here in the Tampa Bay community relative to our comparison communities?
Thanks, Bimitra, and thank you for clarifying which baseball team is here. I'm off script, sorry. We know that Tampa Bay is a place where people want to be, and for another year it is also a place where entrepreneurs are staking their claim. The business establishment start rate you see compares the number of new businesses in 1 year to the number of existing businesses the previous year. This data doesn't yet show the effect of the pandemic or post-pandemic period, but for every 100 businesses in Tampa Bay in 2018, 2019 saw 11.38 business starts. That's good for 6th in the rankings, and I'll note here that the other 3 large Florida metros rank 1st, 2nd, and 5th, so a strong showing by the Sunshine State. I'm going to touch on one aspect of innovation before turning to Balaji, which is patent generation. Patents are one way to protect intellectual property and innovative ideas, along with trademarks, trade secrets, and copyright. Tampa Bay lags most of the other regions, and with 3.41 new patents per 10,000 residents, ranks 17th out of the 20 metros. The top patent generating metros you see on the screen up there average 7 times more patents on a per capita basis compared to Tampa Bay.
Thank you, everyone. So, as you know, USF every year makes me add a few jokes just to make the data look good in comparison. But I'm not going to do that this year because the data is actually better than what we expected, particularly in patents and so on. Now, if you look at university R&D expenditures, you can see, for instance, here we've shown Tampa Bay as compared to Baltimore. And over the years, you will see that more or less, so Rory, you can move it forward. So more or less, we've stayed the same, and the numbers, are in comparison. And in a second, I'll tell you, I'll synthesize this for you. If you go to the next slide here, our competitive position in terms of university R&D expenses have also been somewhere in the middle to bottom. Now, there are a few interesting things that have moved up, and you see a few bubbles that have grown over the years. They've also become big like me with inflation. But if we go to the next slide, patents, which is a different look at innovation too. we're not doing as well as obviously places like Seattle on a per capita basis. Move again to the next slide, and if you look at the competitive position in patents per 100,000, again, you will see us somewhere in the bottom part of the picture. Now, going to the next slide, if you look at USF, on the other hand, is one of the leading generators of patents compared to universities in the world, and it's been in the top 10 for a long time, and we've been doing extremely well and contributing well. So what is going on here? Right? So what is going on here is, if you look at these two big things, university R&D expenses are one way of tracking innovation. And the NSF tracks this quite well. And the last few years, we have seen a big component of this is actually health-related spending, health-related R&D. And that's why when you see places like Johns Hopkins out there, you know why, right? They're out there. Now, the great news for us with Tampa General Hospital and USF Health doing the kinds of things they are, I think the health-related R&D expenses is likely to grow, and that should push us up in comparison. The few bubbles that shot up in R&D expenses, when you saw Houston, for instance, the University of Texas, right, the medical center, was part of that. And the kind of funding they bring in for health-related R&D expenses pushes them up in comparison. So I think we're going to look much better over the next few years because of what we're doing in health here. Patents, again, are interesting because if you think of who generates patents, it's not just universities, it's businesses. And so what we see in the data is that there are some cities, particularly Portland, for instance, that are relatively low in the university R&D expenses because they don't have great universities like us, as good here, I think. And their health system, for instance, is not as, compared to places like Johns Hopkins and so on, obviously is not comparable. But on the patent side, they are high, right? Why is that the case? They have a lot of tech employers there, right, with Intel and the others generating these patents. So we need businesses who can generate IP, and we also need universities who can spend. In our benchmarking, in our MSAs, we are relatively low on both sides, but you see different cities high on both sides. Our job here will be to get both businesses that can generate IP, as well as university R&D to increase with investments in health and so on. And hopefully, I think we'll see that happening next few years. So.
That's really interesting. From a real-time data perspective, what are you seeing on Google Trends in terms of innovation activity?
Now, I think this is going to be a nice pointer to our guest speaker. So this chart looks messy. And earlier, we had presented Google Trends data on, for instance, if people moving to Tampa Bay, search was a nice way to capture people's intention to move to places because they go to places like Google and search housing costs, apartments, and so on. With innovation, it's a lot more difficult to do that. And we found that search trends was a hard way to capture innovation because if people are searching for blockchain ideas, are they looking to start a company or are they doing a homework assignment for a high school, right? So the kind of search terms have very high variance. And so, I'm hoping that in our next conversation with Elizabeth, we can dig deeper into how do we track innovation in a more consistent way using some creative metrics.
And so one of the ways that we track our innovation metrics through the Regional Competitiveness Report is through small business and research and tech grant awards. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the particular programs in the Competitiveness Report are the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Research. SBIR, STTR, it really rolls off the tongue. So these are grant programs administered by the United States Small Business Administration on behalf of a dozen or so agencies. Department of Defense, Department of Agriculture, NASA, Environmental Protection Agency, and so on. The SBA calls it America's Seed Fund, and it is intended to stimulate innovation, meet the research and development needs of the participating agencies, and to do so in a manner that includes participation from women-owned and other socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. This year, Tampa Bay ranks 19th out of the 20 markets with $1.41 of awards per capita. For comparison, the United States average is $9.47, and the top performer, Raleigh-Durham, saw $38.69 of SBIR STTR awards per capita. In terms of the share of total awards to economically disadvantaged firms, Tampa Bay ranks 7th among the comparison regions. Out of a total of $7 million in 2020 SBIR STTR awards, a little more than a fifth went to disadvantaged firms. Orlando, with $24 million in awards, saw a little more than half go to disadvantaged firms. So while total awards in Tampa Bay are relatively low, the share to disadvantaged firms here is relatively high. So as we take steps to encourage SBIR STTR awards to regional firms, care should be taken to keep this or increase strong ratio intact.
Thank you so much. That was really fascinating. We appreciate that. All right, let's continue this discussion on innovation and entrepreneurship with our next guest, Elizabeth Pritchard. Elizabeth is the founder of White Rock Data Solutions, a consulting firm providing innovative solutions for managing and commercializing data. She has experience with working with Goldman Sachs and has helped in leadership roles across sales and trading, compliance, and treasury for nearly 2 decades. As managing director of the Global Market Data Services team, Elizabeth adopted new data sources and applied data science to drive expenses and efficiencies. Welcome to the stage, Elizabeth. So we're really excited to have you here with your background in innovation and Wall Street, and we appreciate you sharing your insights with us today. What do you think are some of the key ingredients that corporations can apply to foster and cultivate innovation and growth?
Well, thank you. Let me just start out by saying thank you for having me here today. And what a great topic, innovation. I'm a little daunted by trying to create innovation in a community. My wheelhouse has always been creating innovation in corporations. So I thought, we could kind of start with your question and talk about how do we create innovation in organizations. And my focus has been finance. Many years going around the mountains in finance across many different functions. And my lens has always been data and technology, data and artificial intelligence, data and data science, to try and figure out what is the data telling us. And we've heard a lot of that today, and I've learned a lot today. I don't like being an underdog, so we'll have to do something about that. But what is that data telling us, and how are we using that data to drive outcomes, to drive business outcomes? And so some of what I've learned and have seen and have done in organizations has been trying to figure out how to get the innovation in. So it's more kind of about, when we're thinking about companies, entrepreneuring and trying to figure out, okay, I live on a ranch, so it's like, okay, we've got this scorched dirt here. How are we going to till this soil, plant it, and create a harvest? And so it's really important to protect the innovation. It's really important to, okay, figure out what the goals are, and then figure out what are the innovations, people, process, data, technology, that are going to drive and give us the intended result. A quick example would be, for example, investment research. I would imagine many of you are invested in the markets in some way, shape, or form, or in real estate. So there's this period where you're evaluating data and you're trying to figure out, well, should I or should I not make this investment? Well, what's been happening in the world, and we've all seen it certainly in our consumer applications, is there's just tons of data and tons of recommendations and tons of advertisements tied to our preferences. And that's all done through the application of many data sources and AI and machine learning to get that right advertisement to you, or to figure out what that stock recommendation is, to figure out what stock should be invested in. And so in the investment research process across finance, there's been enormous, massive shifts in how stocks are traded. And we all see the market volatility, right? We have the algorithms, just, things are going up and down continually. There's the whole now data-driven economy feeding these models, these data science models on Wall Street that are creating recommendations for investments. And all of that innovation has just been progressing over the last decade or so, to the point now where we can kind of take a look back and say, well, what made that so successful? And it's really pretty amazing when looking at the statistics that across, humanity, research has proven only 2% are true innovators. So it really comes back to my point about we really need to protect the innovators. We really need to, a few points would be leadership, whether you're running a company or whether you're a senior leader and you see the innovation ideas coming in, you really need to protect the innovators. We tend to be extremely risk averse, right, as a society, as people. In fact, the numbers are 85% are show me, prove it to me, or no.
So they're lawyers.
Exactly, lawyers, compliance, and most people, right, is the big no. And so we need to protect the innovators. We need to protect the early adopters through investing capital in them, through creating an environment where they can succeed and they can flourish and they can bring their, whether it's a model or an analysis or research forward in a safe way. We need to be able to fund these activities, and we need to be transparent about what our intentions are and what our goals are. So I think kind of the short answer to that explanation is really protecting the innovators, identifying the innovators, and protecting the innovators.
I love that, protecting the innovators. Can you share a little bit with us about what areas of technology you're seeing growing the fastest that corporations are adopting?
Sure. Yeah. So what I'm seeing in my swim lane is in data and technology, of course, the cloud. All right, the march to the cloud. With all of the hype and all the marketing, you may think everybody's already on the cloud, but I can tell you in finance, this is not the case. There's tons more work to be done there. I was on the phone with an asset management company a couple weeks ago, and they said it's going to take us 3 to 5 years to get all our stuff to the cloud. So the cloud, there's tons more work there to be done, both for storage of data and compute. There is a ton of work being done in data science and in machine learning and in deep learning. A lot of research done there. I would imagine the university is doing a lot of research there. So tons of work being done there. And then those models being applied to whether it's to get insights for investment decision making or to get insights about how a process is performing. That is huge. And then in the data space, there is just a ton of work going on and target market accessibility, that meaning new business being created with environmental, social, governance data, with Russia. There's a ton of work going on with trying to understand the resources that corporations have deployed in Russia, in the Ukraine, in Eastern Europe. Firms that I know have overnight lost their teams, and so the people are looking in Florida. People are looking in Tampa Bay for coders, for software engineers, because they wholesale have lost their teams. They have no way to pay them. They can't move them quickly. So that is data and insights about what's happening there, and then the opportunity to enable those companies to build their teams in the United States, in Florida, is a huge opportunity. And then blockchain. I'll end with blockchain. There's a lot more, but I'll end with blockchain. Blockchain and NFT. Okay, I was down in Miami a week and a half ago to go to an NFT conference. And that space has started with art. It's been started with cartoons, Twitter tweets and selling those through NFTs. But there's also serious B2B opportunities in data, in technology, NFTs, and in the blockchain. And maybe Miami might have got a little bit of a head start, but it's a huge space. The whole finance angle on that is called DeFi. There is tons of opportunity, a huge growing market there that can be tapped. And of course, I'll acknowledge the great successes we've already had in cyber in the region, and we're attracting more. So if we can protect the innovators and get some of these seeds planted, and collaborate, that's a great word, to grow and kind of sprout and get the harvest. I think it's possible for the underdog.
So obviously innovation is something that our region is excited about. We're proud about it. You mentioned, cybersecurity, some of the new companies that have come here. What additional steps can we take here in the region to continue to encourage that development of innovation in our region?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I read the history of Silicon Valley and how that all started, and all of the things that came together for that to manifest to what it is today. Then you've got Silicon Alley in New York, and all of the investment dollars that are going into that kind of hotbed of entrepreneurship. And then we've got Silicon Beach. I'd like something that rhymes with Alley and Valley, though. I couldn't think of it. But so, okay, what can we do to really continue to foster the growth? And I kind of think of the areas like a petri dish, right? And so how do we create and invite the innovators, invite the pioneers, get the early adopters here? Because, it is the quality of life, right? The great work that the universities are doing. I don't see the reason why. Right? Okay, Seattle has got a big head start. All right, San Diego's they've got big head starts. So you set them aside. The free economy in this state and the money that is coming to Florida. All of these asset management and hedge fund people, they all have places in Florida. So let's bring and let's create funds and capital to really help build the petri dish, whether it's investors that are bringing it to the fore by investing in early stage companies, whether it's corporations that are already here creating innovation labs, investing in startups, creating their own labs within their firms, so that we have then an environment to attract the talent. The universities are doing the work, so that we then have that environment to attract the talent. And the final thing I would say is, given the landscape, especially in technology, data and technology, has flattened quite a bit. I ran my business. I just finished a gig as leading an AI company. I ran the whole thing from my ranch, the whole thing, And so given that we're now in this very hybrid environment, what can we do to attract the headquarters here and even help them bring the talent wherever the talent is? It may not necessarily need to move, but the revenue for the company would be here, which would help get our economic value up. So, and one final thing, I have to put a plug in for STEM and for our underserved communities. Girls and our underserved communities, and teaching these students how to code, and working with the corporations to invest in programs. Additionally, I know we're already doing it, but to additionally really get even more serious about teaching our students how to code, so that they have a beautiful career path in the region.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'm going to turn things back over to Msas, who's going to dig into the data from an educational standpoint. Awesome. Good job.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Bimitra. That was very insightful. And you've heard the latest trend: artificial intelligence, blockchain, you name it. We have program at USF for you. You can talk to the team and be there. Now I'm gonna invite back here. Let me get my notes. I don't want it when I get off the script. All right. Let's see. Okay, yes. Dave, and for the very first time, Rohit, one of my favorite doctoral students. I want to, before Dave, I want to tell you something about Rohit. He's a little bit shy, but he just got married. So congratulations, Rohit. But also there is a story, because when I called him on his honeymoon on the beach, he said, oh, how's everything, Rohit? He said, are you enjoying it? He said, yeah, but the one thing I'm enjoying the most with my wife is really building predictive models for, so he was doing that. And what he made a deal with his wife that when they have a baby, the first language that they will teach that baby is Python, so that he can develop predictive models. So, all right. Yeah, Laurie said, go back to script. Education. So we talked about healthcare, we talked about innovation, entrepreneurship, education. Very passionate about it. Education is always the foundation of any community prosperities. So let's talk a little bit about this. How is the Tampa Bay region performing in terms of education, Dave?
Thanks, Msas. There's quite a few areas we could dive into here, but I'm going to focus on high school graduation to start. And what we saw is that high school graduation rates did increase over the past year from last year's report. And it's encouraging that the rates you see here, and as we've mentioned before, at 89.09%, it's the highest it's ever been in the Tampa Bay region for all students, and at 84.63% for economically disadvantaged, which is defined as the population with free or reduced lunch. That is also at an all-time high record. But there's a small caution to be mentioned with these figures here. The graduation rates for the 2019-2020 school year, the ones you see here, had slightly different requirements than previous years. With students out of school and learning remotely, the Florida Standards Assessment for 10th grade English Language Arts and the Algebra 1 end of course exam were temporarily removed from the graduation requirements. So like many of the indicators affected by pandemic response and behavior, we're going to be looking closely at the data in subsequent years to see if a positive trend continues or if it's necessary to take a small step backward as traditional standards return. In terms of the rankings, we find that even though at an all-time high for the region, Tampa Bay ranks 11th in terms of the on-time diploma graduation rate for all students and ranks 10th for the economically disadvantaged. And while these rankings are at the middle of the pack, what is encouraging is that only a few percentage points separate Tampa Bay from the very top of the rankings. So with some very smart and student-specific interventions, it would not be a surprise to see our region atop this list in years to come.
I like that. Some good news here. Rohit.
We have just seen Dave talk about high school graduation rates, and equally important is higher degrees, degree production and STEM degree production. So I'll be talking about our insights on degree production and STEM degree production. So the data sources we are using is US Census Bureau and IPEDS, which is Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. So let's go ahead, see what's there. So let's talk about degree production per 10,000 residents. So like out of 10,000 residents, how many degrees are we producing? So let us compare Tampa Bay with San Diego. You can see San Diego, very high degree production. So the starting year is 2017. So let's see how that number has changed. Slightly improved, but the sad news is we have been declining over the last 2 years, like 2018 to 2020, whereas San Diego, it has been increasing. Like it was already high, but then it kept increasing till 2020, but we kept declining. But that's something of that's an issue of concern which we need to address. Let's look at the competitive positions. In 2017, Tampa Bay, again we have low degree production, and then Tampa Bay is somewhere in the middle of the bottom half. So let's see how that changed over the years. Slightly improved, stayed there. Slightly improved. So the thing is, we have declined in terms of actual value of degree production per 10,000 residents, but in terms of competitive position, we have improved. So yes, we gained a little in terms of competitive position, but the actual value itself is declining. So we have to address that issue. And another important is STEM degree production. We have just heard our speaker talking about the importance of STEM degree production, so science, technology, education, and science, technology, and mathematics. So if you see the report, we have the results of the primary drivers of economic growth, and you can see STEM degree production being a very important driver for two outcomes, unemployment rate and GRP per capita. We know that GRP per capita, we are very low, and STEM degree production per 10,000 residents can be a very important aspect, a very important variable which we can address and improve ourselves in terms of GRP per capita. So let us see how we are faring in terms of STEM degree production per 10,000 residents. In 2013, we were very low. We started improving. Orlando, Jacksonville declined. We have been improving. And from 2018 onwards, we started declining again. So both degree production per capita and STEM degree production per capita, from 2018 onwards, we have been declining. But the good news is we were at much better position when compared to what we were in 2013. Yes, the trend is sad. We are declining, but we have improved a lot compared to what we were in terms of 2013. So let's look at the competitive position. In 2013, we were Tampa Bay green bubble. We were somewhere in the bottom. Let's see how that improved. We were improving from 2013 to 2018, and then decline. So both in terms of STEM degree. so we have improved, but we have declined in terms of...
See, we have to be careful. The emotion of the audience here is really going up. We're sorry. This is the data.
That's what it is. That's what it is, and that's something we need to address. So we can't emphasize enough on the importance of STEM degree production per capita. So these are the key takeaways. So degree production, slight declining trend, but STEM degree, it has increased over the years, but it is declining trend, and that's a matter of concern.
Thank you, Rohit. But again, I think another key takeaway, like David, you said, we're close. There is no huge difference between us and the best, and we can always. This is the start of the discussion, not the end of the discussion. So Dave, I know in the competitiveness report, most of the indicators, not all of them, you compare to other 19 MSAs. But for education and key measures from K to 12, these measures are only available for Florida, so you use Florida and you benchmark against other regions in Florida. So would you share some insights of what have you find and what are some key takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely. And so like Mo has said, many of the talent indicators in our report and the one that you received when you came here today are based on those Florida standards for which there is no true national comparison. So we take a look at Tampa Bay's performance relative to Jacksonville, Orlando, South Florida, and the state as a whole. Of those 9 Florida talent indicators, student performance in Tampa Bay fell in the most recent year in 8 of them. So in 8 of the 9 indicators, the next crop of students performed worse than the students before them. And so certainly with many of our tests being paused and postponed due to the pandemic, we can see very quantitatively the slide according to COVID. So I want to focus on some early indicators of K-12 success, and specifically kindergarten readiness and 3rd grade reading. In the 2019-2020 school year, 53.75% of Tampa Bay kindergartners passed the literacy-based readiness test. In the 2018-2019 school year, remember there were no FSAs, and the 3rd grade reading is a Florida standard assessment. There are no FSAs in 2019-2020. 55.23% of our 3rd graders passed the English Language Arts assessment. So let's just stop and think about that for a second. Only a little more than half of our kindergartners show up ready to learn in kindergarten, and only half of our 3rd graders are reading at grade level in 3rd grade. And that's an important point in terms of instruction, because that is generally when the curriculum shifts from students learning to read to being expected to be able to read to learn. And so what we see in Tampa Bay is that that's roughly a 50-50 proposition. And when we fast forward to the 2020-2021 school year, we find that both measures dropped, slightly for kindergarten readiness and more substantially for third grade reading. And when we look at this indicator through an equity lens, you see in the yellow bar the overall 52.63% third grade reading pass rate, and the blue bars show some representative racial and ethnic categories. What we see here is that Tampa Bay's African American black students at 34.05% are roughly half as likely to pass the third grade reading test vis-a-vis their white non-Hispanic counterparts at 64.68%. And from a business and economic perspective, the downstream impacts of this key educational checkpoint are pretty significant in terms of future opportunities and earnings. And so when we want to think about ways to really impact regional competitiveness and prosperity, one place to start is solving gaps like these and unlocking the human potential in each young person.
Thank you, Dave. This is really frightening. This is frightening. John Kerrs mentioned the problems for healthcare, but for education is even more. We need to do something about it. This is
we will be having an Ask the Researchers. Mr. Muma, it is for the entire region.
Yes. Only Les Muma can ask any question anytime. His name is on my business card, so I'd better be. Thank you, Les, for everything you've done for USF. All right. Now, Rohit, this question is for you, and I promise I'm not going to embarrass you. How are we doing with respect of disadvantaged population in terms of educational attainment? Let's drill this a little bit further.
So, enough of bad news in terms of degree production per capita, STEM degree production per capita, kindergarten readiness, like we have had enough of bad news. Now we have something good to talk about and something to be proud of. So I'm presenting the position of Tampa Bay, white-black, in terms of white-black educational attainment rate gaps. So white, percentage of white population with bachelor's or higher, percentage of black population with bachelor's or higher degree. Tampa Bay has the lowest gap in terms of educational attainment. You can see Tampa Bay is at #1 position with the lowest gap, and then Miami is at 18th position with a very, very high educational attainment gap. Orlando and Jacksonville, they are somewhere in the bottom of the top half MSAs.
So this is great news.
Yeah.
This is great news. And
Indeed,
yeah,
indeed.
Finally, yes, I
Yeah.
told you there's some good news. And this is really something, and I know Madam President is also very proud of this, but for USF is one of only, if any other universities, that people actually graduate in 4 years at the same rate, and sometimes even at a higher rate if they are from underrepresented group. That's what we're working on, but we need to continue the work. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Dave and Rohit, thank you for your insight into the data. It's clear that we really need to work together. Let's continue now, with the an expert that probably will bring something for us, a good practice that will help us alleviate some of these problems. So on this note, I'd like to bring up next guest speaker, Dr. Stacy Glaver from 3DE. Stacy, yes, thank you. Stacy is the Director of Instructional Leadership for 3DE by Junior Achievement in Tampa Bay. She works with a portfolio of schools to lead instructional practices that align to the 3DE competency-based model. Stacy previously served for 15 years as a high school English teacher and reading coach. Her passion for education is what motivates her to make learning engaging, collaborative, and relevant for all students. Stacy, thank you for being with us. that's what, one of the things that we really wanted to do from this event is start the discussions, look at good practices, look at how we can truly improve. So next year when we are here, we see some movement and not going back the other way. We want just good movement. And I tell you, I'm because of my involvement with the junior achievement in Tampa Bay, and I think we have Richard George. Is Richard George here? Yes, Richard, thank you for all the work you do at Tampa Bay. 3DE as a model has been really perceived as a great way of alleviating and solving a lot of these problems, and especially the high school, preparing students for real life and also let them stay and graduate on time. So, Stacy, thank you so much for being with us. And if you don't mind, tell our audience, what is this 3DE model is all about?
Well, one, thank you for having me today. Hello, everyone. So 3DE by Junior Achievement, we are an instructional model, and we basically prepare students to succeed in a global economy. So pretty much, let's think about this here. We have kids, some of us have kids who are in school, and sometimes they come home and you say, what did you do at school today? And they say, nothing. And you're like, how did you spend 7 hours there and you did absolutely nothing? And then as a former educator in the classroom, your students come to you and they say, well, why are we reading Romeo and Juliet? How is this going to help me once I leave this building? And as an educator, I would look at them and say, I really don't know. I can't help you with that, right? So 3DE, what we are doing is we are able to help students to answer that question of why. Okay, why are we doing this? So going back to Romeo and Juliet, why are we reading Romeo and Juliet? Well, if they knew how to communicate, then the ending would have been a little bit different, right? So I think as I was listening to each of our speakers today, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, our 3DE students, they are ready. Because John, you talked about, well, he's over there.
Yes.
He talked about collaboration. And if you walk into any of our 3DE schools and you walk through classrooms, you walk by classrooms, what you're going to see are students collaborating. What you're going to see are students engaged. You're not going to see a phone out. Well, you might, that happens. But you're going to see students actually involved in the learning. So instead of the teachers walking out of the building with their heads down like, ugh, give me a bed, they're running out the building and the students are the ones tired because they're the ones doing the learning and actually applying the learning. So when you ask how are they applying and how does that connect with real world, well, what's happening is students are taking their standards-based learning and they are applying it to real world business challenges. And many of our challenges come from local Tampa Bay businesses, thanks to Junior Achievement. And some are also national challenges as well, or companies. And they're using these challenges in solving problems. And they're solving them through what we call competencies or soft skills. And one of those competencies are collaboration. So students are taking these skills, applying it, and now they're seeing how what they're learning in their math, their English, their science, their social studies, all connects to the outside world. So it's a great thing, and we're doing amazing. I'm loving it.
Oh, I totally agree, Stacy. I see the students in actions, but also I see them when they come to us at USF. They're really well prepared, and they are different from others. So it's just an incredible model. You started seeing the impact, and we're starting to see it at USF. Tell us a little bit about the impact of this model.
So I'm going to bring out the inner Sophia from Golden Girls, and I'm going to say, picture it, Tampa Bay. 2022, a pandemic, OMG, right? And we bring in 3DE to 4 of our Tampa Bay schools during a pandemic, okay? More than half of our students are virtual, and we're bringing this new model in. Were we crazy? Probably so, but now we're like, this is why we did it. So the impact is, in my opinion, exponential, and I say that because like I said, when you walk into a building, you're seeing the impact. You're seeing ninth graders whose confidence level is through the roof. So in the ninth grade, I could never imagine sitting and speaking in front of you all right now. Our ninth graders are doing that. They're getting up and presenting in front of CEOs, CFOs, presidents of companies, and they're confident. They are collaborating. They are literally, when I say they're engaged, they're engaged. They're walking down the hallways talking about what they're doing in their 3DE classes. That's what I see. Now, when you look at data, I'm an ELA teacher, guys, so I had to bring some notes because math is not my strong suit. But when you look at data, the data is amazing considering that, again, we started in Tampa Bay in 2020 during a pandemic. So first, attendance. That's a doozy in high schools right now. Students are absent. It's like chronic. It's chronic, right? So when you look at our 3DE students, they have 17%, that's what we've seen, 17% fewer cases of absenteeism. So it's like a domino effect. If you're in school, if you're in the building, if you're in the seats, guess what? You're getting that knowledge, you're getting those skills, you're getting that information, and then we can take it out into the real world, right, with those skills that they're learning. In regards to standardized testing, last school year, 88.9% of 3DE students outperformed non-3DE students. So again, that's saying something. That's saying when they're sitting in the classroom, they're actually getting something out of what their teachers are presenting to them, and they're retaining that information. Teacher engagement and buy-in, that's important, right? So 96.9% of our teachers are fully engaged and bought into the 3DE model. This is super important because it's contagious. If the teachers are engaged and they want to be there and they're excited about it, the students are going to feed off of that, and guess what? They're going to be as excited and as engaged. And we can't forget our principals, 100% buy-in. They are all for it. They're seeing the results, they're loving the results. They're walking into classrooms, and many of them are in awe because of what they're seeing and the products that students are providing for these businesses that they are solving solutions for.
Stacy, this is amazing. This is incredible. If you really want to see high schooler excited, collaborating, communicating, solving real life problems, go to a 3DE school. Get involved. Richard will tell you how, but it is absolutely one of the things that hopefully will help us go up but never go down. Stacy, thank you so much. Let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dimitra, back to you.
All right, so you've gotten a lot of good information and a lot of data in a short amount of time this afternoon. For those quant jocks that want to hear more, we're going to have a Meet the Researchers panel. It's going to be immediately following the luncheon today. You just go out of the ballroom, take a left, and they're going to be in room 258. At this time, I want to introduce our board chair, Chad Lohr, who's the regional president for West and Central Florida for PNC Bank. Welcome, Chad.
This information and data presented to us today brings some excitement. Certainly it's brought a lot of concern and probably anxiety amongst us all. But to continue with the theme, we know people, we know our businesses and folks want to be here in Tampa Bay. We've seen that the last 2 years at an accelerated rate. They want to live here, play here, and work here. However, their alarm bells are going off. We believe housing affordability is going to be a major issue, and it's something that the partnership is going to be tackling here very soon on the data that's being presented here. At the Tampa Bay Partnership, as the chair of the partnership currently, and speaking on behalf of my investors my peer investors within the partnership, we are committed to using this data, to mining and identifying the data and using this to go tackle the big issues that on hand here in this Tampa Bay region. We've been doing that for 5+ years with transportation and trying to find alternative transit. Obviously, it hasn't been presented here, but it's in the material. We started 3 to 4 years ago working on our talent, and now we're starting to dive deeper within the talent on what we just talked about here in the education as far as kindergarten through 12th grade in our educational system, and we're going to even go probably pre-K. So we're digging deeper into that. We're going to remain committed to working on newer issues such as the opioid crisis that we've been presenting the last 12, 18 months, resiliency, business resiliency, sea level rise that just recently we introduced after commissioning a feasibility study. And again, under our new leadership with Bamitra as our CEO, affordable housing. This event and the research that's been shared with us today has given me, and I hope each and every one of you here today, a better idea of what we're doing well and obviously what we need to be improving on to move this region forward. Now I'd like to take a moment to thank our new CEO and President of Tampa Bay Partnership, Bamitra, and her team, her lean team. Thank you for what you've done to put this together, as well as Msas and his doctors, researchers, and entire team to put together this great program today. So please. We all know there's no single individual or community or business company that's responsible for the success of our region. We can only accomplish it when we work together. The Tampa Bay Partnership and the USF Muma College of Business has proven that today. So the most important thing we need to make sure is that we all continue collaborating with each other and amongst each other and focus on the results. It is now my great honor to close out this event, to bring us home here, but welcome to the stage my good friend and past chair of the Tampa Bay Partnership, and now the 8th president of the University of South Florida, Lohr. President Lohr, come on up.
Okay, so Chad just told me to bring it home. So let me just say, what a great day it was today. I'll tell you, the information that we got is instructive for us to think about our future. It's also an indication that this community cares. This community cares about itself. It cares about getting better. So it doesn't hide any of these metrics from anybody. It doesn't say, hey, we're doing great, come on down. It's saying, look, we're really looking seriously at ourselves and we want to be better. No, we want to be best. And so that's exactly what we're striving for, and we can only do it if we have partnerships. If there's anything I heard from today, it's how partnerships make things better. Look at healthcare. We need the systems working together. We need them working in concert with our universities. Look at all the other things that we've talked about today. It's all about partnerships. The very fact that we had this meeting is a partnership between the Tampa Bay Partnership and the University of South Florida. And so that tells you that's the future. Now that we have the template of what we're looking for, now we need to be thinking about how do we reach out and involve other people, and let's jointly make investments of our time, investments of our funds, investments of our thought processes. Let's think about how we move forward. This is a call to action. It's been a call to action over the last 5 years, but I'm telling you, the impacts of COVID are going to be significant. And when we come back here next year, if we don't do something today, I'm not so sure what those numbers are going to show. So I'm giving you a clue up front that we need to be working now to impact this year. And so I challenge all of you, I want you to go home and think about it, and then reach out to other people in this room, other people in the region, and let's make those numbers go up. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you for committing your time today. That means we care. And I'll end with, go Bulls!